Howdy folks, welcome back to another video. In this video you're going to see how to repair and replace a rusted out front pillar like this. Go to this. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. It does help the channel as far as the YouTube metrics go, and it encourages me to continue videotaping and help me to help y'all. So y'all stick around and enjoy. Alrighty, so lo and behold, you've taken your outer rocker off of your truck, whether you've put a new floor pan in it or your original floor pan's still in it and you're looking to replace your outer rocker. And you take it off to find out you need both, probably the rear and the front pillar. Today we're going to talk about the front pillar because I've already done a video on the rear pillar and the cab corner, and I haven't done a video on the front pillar. So this is it in all of its glory. Typically what happens is water gets up in this channel through the numerous ways it can get in there. Commonly is up through the roof of the cab where the seal is around the top. Leaks down and it sits right here until a hole forms and it can leak out. Whether that hole forms in the back of the inner rocker, your cab support, because directly on the other side of this is your cab support, so water just collects down here and it rusts out. From the factory there are 4 bolts, 2 on each side. You order your patch panel. Looks like this. This particular one is a Tri Plus panel, and you have to decide where to cut your original piece. Obviously this is rotted down here. Few factors you want to keep in mind is where this rust stops and the paint begins. That's where your outer rocker sat originally. What I like to do is make sure I keep that line there. There's also a little divot right here. Where it's rusted in here is actually a little bit recessed to allow the flap that comes out here on your outer rocker to sit kind of flush with the rest of the pillar. So whenever I replace a front pillar, I like to stay below about this point. Right in here on this front side is where your outer rocker sits flush. So I like to stay below that just so you know you're not moving anything and your outer rocker positioning is not impacted by anything you do with this. As you probably noticed, the reproductions don't come with bolt holes. So the first thing we're going to do is decide where we want to cut the old one off. This right here is a real handy tool. They're on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. They're pretty cheap, but they come in handy a lot. So like I said, I want to stay below that little white streak. This particular one isn't very deep, so it can't go the full length. But it'll get us most of the way there. Getting ready to cut panels, I use tape because it's a pretty good visual indicator rather than try and freehand the rest of that line. take the tape. I'm trying to keep everything in a 90-degree plane. I do have a laser that I can set up, but I don't know that I'm going to do that for this. You want to try and plan your cuts so where you're going to have to grind your weld flush, it's going to be easier to do it. Some areas it's going to be harder to grind. So if I did it up there where I've got the tape, I can easily get my grinder in there. So I like where it's at there. Put it back on and try and see how much play it's got, because these panels overlap. It doesn't feel like it's got any side to side movement, which makes me think it's pretty tight in this area. So what I did there is take my contour gauge, mark where the top of it is, and I'm going to set this to the side, because this panel does not sit. This plane right here is not exactly 90 degrees from the ground. If you look at it head on, it's actually a little bit tilted at the bottom. And I want to make sure, because this is where the bottom of your fender bolts to, I want to make sure that whenever this is in place, I've got it about where the old one set. So once I get this kind of held in place, I will be able to compare it with my contour gauge. So I think we'll go ahead and cut that off. Triple checking all my measurements are okay. Probably can't see it on this, but I took a chalk pencil and ran it along the edges in case when I do this some stuff moves, or some of these little pins move around. So already I can tell that the bottom is not exactly the same, but that doesn't matter. All we care about is the center hole, because that's where the bolt goes through. pretty close. So I'm going to cut that edge off because it's interfering up in here. I'll just go ahead and cut that off real quick. These wonderful things are on Amazon too. They're actually really cheap. I think they're only about $18 a piece. And they're nice because they're deep in both directions. I'll put them in the description. This is where I want it, and it's not. Compare that with our little gauge. Which it is relatively close, but about 3/8 of an inch away, but that's okay. I was just marking what little I could see on that, which was literally the edges. So I'm just gonna go cut this off. This is where I marked it from the inside. So I just marked a little reference dot about right there on this side of the panel where that line is. And then I came up a little bit. I'm gonna cut all this excess off, get a tighter fit, see what we can do with that.
So now we've got a much better line. So we'll cut a little bit above that line to give us some wiggle room.
This is another really cool tool on Amazon if you don't have one. A lot of times it's kind of hard to find a place to clamp. So you can get one of these. It's magnetic and it's a ground mag. And you just grind the surface to bare metal anywhere. I'm doing it on the same pillar. Stick it on. Put your ground clamp on and you're done. It's out of the way. You got a good ground. So I'll link one of those in the description. They're pretty cheap too. For the cost, it far exceeds the hassle of trying to get that clamp somewhere. So this bottom line is the line that I marked when I initially had this fit up against the panel. That's why it's so important never to cut on the line, especially with a panel like this that's got so many different sides and it really can't sit flush where it needs to. So I had this line, and when I took it in the back to cut it, I drew a line, another line above it. You can see part of it right there. Let's see. About 1/4 of an inch or so above this. And that's what you saw me do, kind of working it down and getting it to where I want it. Now, this does not sit on there perfect. I'll show you. With the right side flat, you can see that this edge is way out, not where we want it to be. And you saw me kept using that contour gauge, but that's an incredible tool to have when you're doing this. But what I'm gonna do is, this front face right here is where I want it. So I'm gonna line that front face up. I'm gonna double check the contour gauge. That's about where I want it. We're gonna see what it looks like. Or no, it's not. We're going to try somewhere in there, put a tack in it, because I don't have 6 arms. Put our contour gauge back on it and see how we like it. Contour gauge is telling me is that fender mount is just about as close as we're going to get it. That's pretty decent. And you can see just how off this backside is. That's fine. All I'm worried about is this front side, so make sure you can see. Cut this side a little bit too low, and you can tell that because the gap's a little big. That's not a big deal. There we go. So now you can see this a little bit better. So this side's a little rough. That's okay. What we're going to do is put a splice right in here. We're going to put a splice right in here and tweak that over some. Cut a little bit more, make some clearance. All I'm focusing on is this corner right here. I'm not worried about any of the rest of it behind it. This is awesome. This little tool is also on Amazon. I just picked it up. I'll link it in the description, but it's spring loaded. You can adjust it, and it's copper, so it's dissimilar. So I'm going to try and use it on the back side of this. I'm not sure if I can get it in there though. Okay, so just like that, fender mounts where it needs to be. What will happen now is we'll go from the back side, mark the center of those holes, use our spring-loaded punch, drill a pilot hole through the back side, and then come from the front with our bigger drill bit. But you can see that that looks really good all the way around, and just took a little bit of finesse work. We'll take a peek to see what it looks like, see how our rocker panel kind of looks. Typically they take a little bit of a lot of finesse work on the rocker panel to get where you want it, but that's okay. So it actually doesn't look too bad. It's getting kind of hung up right here. There's nearly a ½ inch gap. I guess we could cut it off just to see. Where is she catching? Right about there. Yeah, we'll cut it off just to see. So this one's actually looking pretty good right off the bat. The telltale will be when the door gets on there, and this is just screwed in place, but it looks pretty decent. I usually redo the end cap on this back side anyway, so I'm not super concerned with any of that. It's sitting in the channel like it should, flat up against there. It's the outer rocker's flat up against that inner rocker channel, so that's all a real good sign. This one has a Taiwan stamp on it. There's the number. It doesn't have a Tri-Plus sticker on it. So I believe it came from GMC Paul. But yeah, there you go. There is the A-pillar or front pillar ready to get finished up. So there you have it. We'll just clean all the rest of this up and this front pillar will be done. Well, that's it for this one, folks. Appreciate everybody watching. Once again, make sure you're subscribed so you get notified of the next video that we put out. If you want to see something specific, just leave a comment below. I'd be interested to see how many people watching this are working on a truck. Feel free to join the conversation below. Y'all take care and be blessed.